Amnah Ajmal. I've lived and worked in 11 different countries across my career. First decade in banking and the second half in payments and technology.
You had so many rejections at the start of your career.
Yeah, nobody wanted to give me a job. I cannot be in this situation as a woman. I have to be known for my own intellectual brain, my values, my belief. I could be someone who people know beyond this person's wife or this person's daughter. That's how it started. Nice to be here. Nice to see you again. I'm Amnah Ajmal. I live in Dubai. I'm a mom of 3 kids, twins and a girl, 7-year-old and 5-year-old. My daughter's gonna be 7 in December. My twins are gonna be 5. Probably the biggest achievement and the biggest blessing of my life. And I look after Eastern Europe, Middle East, and Africa for Mastercard, all the non-financial institution segments headquartered out of Dubai. I've lived and worked in 11 different countries across my career. First decade in banking and the second half in payments and technology. I'm very happy to be here.
I'm happy to see you again, Amna. Tell us a bit about how this journey started. You said 11 countries. Where did this all start from, your career?
First of all, I think I always had a dream to have financial independence, and maybe not so an international career, but financial independence as a woman was important to me. And Unilever, P&G, and Nestle rejected me. So I wanted to work in FMCG, which at that time, at least when I was graduating, was like a big thing. I wanted to be a marketer. And since all 3 big names rejected me, Citibank is the one who accepted me, and I never wanted to be a banker. So I thought I'll do banking for a couple of years, and then I had Googled some names of people who were successful in banking, but then they moved to FMCG. So I was like, I could also do that move. And then I started with Citibank, and I realized it's an international career on day 1. So I was an international graduate rotating in UAE, Egypt, Turkey, and Bahrain. So it started from a failure, basically.
You had so many rejections at the start of your career.
Yeah, nobody wanted to give me a job.
Nobody wanted to give you a shot. And how did you take that? I mean, starting off with big companies that you had a vision. Even me, I wanted to start with FMCG. So how did you take that and then go about it?
I think they reject all good people, probably. I think it was at that point in time, it's a very low moment. You know, I think in hindsight, you can say, oh, I was able to pull myself back together and all. It was a pretty low moment. But I interviewed for Citibank because a friend of mine who always wanted to be a banker. And I'm talking about the times when banks were still very male-dominated. I mean, they still are, but at that time, they were more so. So he asked me to do an interview, like a dummy interview, so I can go for the interview and come back and tell them what questions they're asking, because I was not interested. By that time, Nestle had not rejected me, so I had high hopes that actually Nestle would accept me. Unilever and P&G had rejected me. So I just went, like, completely relaxed, completely not prepared, because I never wanted this job to begin with. I was just making sure that I remember the questions. I can go out and tell my friend these are the questions that they're asking. But I answered, like, just as every answer. Usually for an interview, you prepare a lot, you're very rehearsed, right? So first of all, it's like you don't want something, right? So you're just yourself, and probably they could see through the person they're looking for, because I don't think so the university experience matters a lot. They're probably more looking for personality traits at the time of recruiting.
You studied at LSE?
Yes. Rejection was really hard, going back to your point, because it's also at that age, you don't know how to deal with it, right? But for me, the stakes were pretty high. I had to make something out of my life, you know. My family was not too happy that I was having a career and I wanted financial independence. So I think when your stakes are high, probably you just keep at it. Okay, if not this, maybe something else would happen. So I was like, if not Citibank, maybe another company. But Citibank, I was not interested in anyways. But when Nestle rejected me and Citi made me an international offer, I was like, wow. I mean, thank you, God, for helping me and for being out there for me, because I was like, okay, I would join banking, right? But those few days when you're like jobless and you know that this is the only path forward, you can't look back, it's hard. But I guess you have to see how far you have come along and what are the options from there. Are you going to give up and go back, or are you going to keep at it? So I think I decided to keep at it.
You said you didn't have support from your family. Why is that so?
But I think in my family, if I have to put myself in their shoes and really empathize with them, no one has ever worked. No one had ever worked. So I think my path was pretty much decided that, I would get married in my early 20s, have 2-3 kids by the time I'm 25. And I don't need to work because my future husband would have money and my dad was well off. So people work for money. So if you have money, why would you want to work? And the logic is true, actually.
So how did you break that barrier? Like, how did you convince that out of this? Or there was no convincing, you just put your foot down?
I think the convincing was a long emotional journey. I did burn a lot of bridges in that convincing. But at the end of the day, it was almost like I have to do this, and I was willing to pay any price at that point in time, be it relationship with my father for it. I had lots of regrets, and a large part of my career was a guilt over that. But then I found my purpose as a leader, and I was like, okay, if at the age of 18, I could think and design a life for myself, a dream that came true. I'm in a leadership position which I got very early on in my career. I can help others, achieve their dreams. So I think it kind of pivoted more from a guilt and a regret into a purpose. It's almost like you always reframe your crucible at some point in time and think, what does it mean to you? So it moved away from a guilt and a regret to giving back.
Is there something you would have changed? Like, if you can go back in the past at that time? I mean, you said that you burnt a lot of bridges and you really put your foot down. And you feel now that, okay, maybe that was the right direction you took. You realized what you're here for. But what would you have changed back then?
So, especially when I had my daughter, I realized that my biggest achievement compared to what people talk about corporate success is that I'm able to give her the choices that I did not have, right? But if I look back, I would say, I don't know, maybe a little bit more patience, a little bit more conversations. I could have lost a year, but maybe they would have agreed, if I would have but that would have meant letting go of the current job opportunity in my hand and spending more time in convincing them. I'm not too sure. But would I change a lot? No, because I think the fact that my children, especially my daughter, has all the choices in the world that she can think of, and she's being raised by hearing that she can't do anything, I think that just makes me feel really good. It's almost like that chapter is closed when my daughter was born, I feel I did the right thing.
How is your relation now with
your family?
I don't have any relations.
You don't?
No.
Okay.
I had to give that up.
Okay.
And you don't use that name, nothing?
Well, I have to say that, at some point in time, you have to really use empathy to understand. So the more I become experienced, and then, age also helps you understand certain things that from their point of view, I think they were completely right.
Yeah, because that was the mindset.
Yes, and if you work for money and you have money, why do you want to work? It's hard to argue with that logic, right? So you say, okay, I want to work because I want to have my own financial independence. Okay, you can have inheritance now. Why do you want to work then? Okay, so then you say, oh, I want to be known for my intellectual capacity, my intellectual identity. Because like, okay, I give you the money, you start a business. So it's it's very hard because you can't almost, and I think in that age, especially when you're in your early 20s, you can't really articulate your dream. And for me, my parents' divorce was a very big trigger in actually me realizing that women need to have a lot of financial independence. They really need to have their own intellectual identity, their own social circle. They need to stand on their own, because my mom came from a very poor family. So it almost, at the point of the divorce, she had nothing. She was no one. So that, I think, kind of triggered it more. I'm just connecting dots as to what I did, because it's very hard to go back in that moment and see, why did you have this strong desire, this passion and perseverance to go through this very hard journey? I mean, most kids would not do it. You come from a well-off family. You have everything available to you. Why would you leave all of that and have $18 in your pocket and just leave everything to live your dream, right? So I think probably that, as a woman, played a role in pushing me in the direction that I did get married pretty late. So I bought my first apartment in London by my own money, which is something I wanted, that my house should be paid by myself. I traveled quite a bit. I was senior in my career. So I think I'd achieved all of that before actually I got married, which was like, I was a person in myself, unlike my mom, who got married at the age of 16. She didn't finish her education, and her entire life just revolved around my dad. And when you take that person out of the equation, it's like the whole world falls apart. And I saw her suffering.
Because you were still with her at that time.
I was 17, yes.
When this happens.
Yeah.
Okay. That must have been tough. I think that you had a lot of struggles and learnings at a very early age.
Yeah, I think also it's about how you process them, right? I mean, some people go into drugs, depression, and it's a way of just processing the environment. Divorce, and especially if it's not amicable, is hard for anyone, especially if you're kids, right? And I think in my case, it was like more that relationships and just having one man being your carer or giver is not something that's sustainable. It's not something that women should do. So while my mom was saying that what a great life she gave us, and how she made so many sacrifices, that she did not finish her education, for me, it was like, why you did not do that? Like, I appreciate what she did, but I thought she could have had a different life, right? So, and that was the moment when I processed the whole situation. Like, okay, I cannot be in this situation as a woman. I have to be known for my own intellectual brain, my values, my belief. I could be someone who people know beyond this person's wife or this person's daughter. That's how it started.
Now, having your own daughter, how do you ensure that you're able to maintain that balance where you're giving her that time but not even sacrificing and living your life? Because you don't want to fall in the same shoes as your mom, right?
I think I have a career, right? I mean, I work, I travel. So I work, I have a job, I travel, I speak at a lot of events. I find that as a way of giving back, because a lot of my talks about gender equity, of course I talk a lot about tech and work also, but I enjoy the talks more about gender equity. Even if one woman comes in the room after my talk and says, it was so inspiring, it means a lot to me. Like, okay, I would sleep better, right? So I think all these things are, for me, ways of, people feel I'm giving back, but I almost feel I'm receiving it, because it helps me sleep better. It helps me internalize the fact that I'm in a privileged position, and always say leadership is a privilege. You touch so many people's lives. I mean, a spouse can make your day good or bad, but I think a boss has a bigger impact on your day, making it good or bad, because you spend more time with your colleagues and your boss at work as opposed to in your house, right? Especially in weekdays. So I think making sure that I'm using that privilege in a manner where I'm giving back and I'm impacting people's life in a positive way, more so for women than men. I think that for me is a way of enjoying. It's something that I'm doing for myself. I know people perceive it as like I'm giving back to the community and I'm doing it for the good of the world if I can make a tiny bit different. But for me, it's a way of actually giving back to myself. It's like it's my me time. It's my inspiration tank that gets filled.
So you're doing it first for yourself, even though it looks like you're giving for the others, but you feel that satisfaction.
Yes, I feel that for me is the most important recognition or achievement. It just keeps me grounded. It helps me internalize a lot. It helps me feel that, yes, I did something. All of this was worth it.
So why is gender equity so relevant to you? Is that all threats from your past?
Part of it, my past, because of course I had choices based on my gender, and my brother had completely different choices available to him, even though I was smarter than him. Like I got a scholarship to university in the US and UK, but I was not allowed because he could not get a scholarship. We just have a 1-year age gap. So we're studying the same grade. So I was literally praying every day that, and even helping him so that he can get it, because my father said if he gets it, then you can go, right? And he did get it. So, of course, that was one part of it. Then my mother's divorce was the second part of it. Then I think was probably this stint that I did in Middle East and Africa, the one that I'm currently doing, where through my partnership work with large telcos, I started getting involved more by seeing the African SMEs and the women, And that for me was very touching. I was like, oh my God, I thought I had a difficult life and I had problems. A woman who's working all day and gets a wage as a daily wage for her day's work. And that's important for her because that helps her buy food for that day and pay electricity for a couple of hours, right? And imagine if that's stolen or a husband takes it and throws it away in gambling, right? That, if you say women are being disadvantaged in the world in general, or in corporate world, imagine that. That's like you're not able to feed your children. So I think now that I'm also a mom, for me that impacts more, that women are so disadvantaged in many of these parts of the world. And the most surprising part for me is that they don't even know that they have this right. They don't know that actually they have the right to the salary that they earned. Just wake up next day and work hard the same day away and earn it again. So I think that partnership work with telcos and looking at those women SME with that lens, it kind of fueled the purpose in a different way.
Yeah.
And then I also started noticing it at work, I would say, that, like, I remember in Poland when I was about to be promoted, my boss called me and she said, oh, you should apply for this job, right? Because my boss had left. And I said, no, I won't, because I'm just 1 year barely in my current job. Why would I apply for this job? And was like, no, you are applying and we're going to interview you. And there were like, at the Citibank, there were 4 other people who would interview you. And I would say, but I don't think so, I deserve it, And I remember my boss said that you're saying it because you're a woman. And at that time, there was nothing in my mind like about gender, such a big, like people think different or something. And anyways, they forced me to apply and I got that job. And now fast forward like 10 years later, I have in the last few years, like 75% of my leadership team is women in most of the recent jobs that I did. And I just learned it's such a common trait. Somehow it's inbuilt in the society, this lack of confidence for women, inability to handle praise, not speak up despite you have content, talking in a little bit of a more apologetic way. Because I think East or West, I worked in US, Europe, Asia, Middle East. I think there's a certain box, and I don't blame anybody for it. It's not that it's a war for men against women. No, in fact, I think my entire career has been supported by great men leaders. I think it's the society's box, which is so unconscious that it's hard to break it. And I think that's why we need to create more awareness about it. Women are supposed to be, I mean, look at the role of your mom. Like if my children who is 7 and 5, they don't know my corporate life at all. And if they have to explain me, what words would they use to explain me, right? Our mommy is huggable. We love her. She cares for her. When we are not well, she's here for us, right? So I think it's the way that different societies have boxed a woman's perception. And now I keep on reading about it. There's so much more research which keeps on proving it. So when you come in work and let's say you're more decisive and you're as decisive as a man would be considered as someone who knows his job, is assertive. But a woman may be considered heartless, emotionless. You know, that's because you have framed in a certain box for years. You've been conditioned the way you're born and everything. It's very hard to change. I took my daughter for a birthday party, and at this play area, they segregated them by gender, like girls here and boys here, right?
Okay.
And my daughter was like, why? Why am I in this line? So, of course, she understood. I said, they have made it a girls' line. But I said, like, let me check why. So I asked the person who was doing the exercise with the kids, I said, why have you separated them? He said, the height over here is 120 for this, whatever obstacle they were to. And this one is 110, right? I said, but it's better if you would have said height. First of all, maybe some girl is taller.
Could be tall, exactly.
Yes. Second, I said there was a better way of saying it as opposed to just segregating them by gender, right? So I went to my daughter and I made her stand on the height scale. And I said, Sasha, that one is for 120, you know? You don't reach 120 right now. That's why. And I said, oh, but it was so important for me to explain it to her that it's not because of gender. Imagine you, just by a little thing, and it's no person's fault.
Yeah.
Just by doing this small action, kids are like a sponge. They absorb everything. You passed on a message to both genders that segregation by gender is okay to participate in an activity. So
She asked the right question.
yeah, and it was important for me to understand and get back to her and then explain to her. But this was one incident where I was there, right? And I noticed it. I'm sure there's so many incidents that happen during the day, and nobody's doing it deliberately. Nobody's doing it because they have some malicious intent. They're just doing it because this is the way we have been raised. This is the way society has conditioned us, right? So that's why it's a very, very long journey. And the reason I speak a lot is like I want more and more people to speak and talk about it. Because I have a voice irrespective in today's world. Because I have access to social media. When you go 8 years back, if I had to talk about an issue, it is very hard, right? Like I can talk to friends. It has a limited impact. So that's why I encourage both women and men to think about this and start raising their voice in terms of little things, but they would make a difference, you know? We have a long, long way to go. I think this is just one small example.
Yeah. What all things are you, specifically you as an Amnah and Mastercard, doing in this real world problem?
So, fortunate to work with an employer like Mastercard, right? Financial inclusion is one of the big vision and mission of the company. And there's a special focus on women entrepreneurs with regards to financial inclusion. That's all the work that we do with the telcos impact the SMEs, and you're including them into the financial services world by enabling acceptance on their device and giving the consumers a virtual card. But in addition to that, I would say it's important for me as a person beyond that how do I bring in some of the things that I know inhibit women from progressing in their career. And that's why the Women SME Award that I started, it was such a small thing, but kudos to my team who put this together. But it's a way to encourage women from all over the region, 80 markets, make them fly to Dubai, put the light on them, put them on stage, recognize their achievement, and help them be comfortable with it, give them a platform to network, you know, help them see there's so many other women like them, who are going through the similar challenges in a completely different part of the world. Somebody from Botswana connecting with someone in Georgia or UAE. So I think that for me is like really helping uplift women. And then there's small things that you do in a day. And I know I notice them because I'm a woman leader. And I know that a man, it would be hard for them to notice it. Like, for example, if I see a very talented woman who was in a meeting where she could have contributed and she stayed quiet, I would give her feedback after the meeting. Like, why didn't you say anything specifically at this point when actually it pertains to your area and you had a lot to say? Oh, I wanted to say, but then someone else said it. I was about to say, but then I thought it's not a relevant point. I even posted at LinkedIn about it. This is a very peculiar way of women thinking. And I told her that this is not how men think. When contributing in a meeting, regardless of the seniority, the person is not going to think, don't get me. I mean, even they're men introverts, and I would also tell them. But here it's very peculiar and very specific to the gender. So it's like, no, if you have content, and it's not only about hard work, it's about visibility. It's about how you articulate that content, and the other stakeholders in the meeting realize that you were present. You wasted an opportunity because you were in a meeting with the right stakeholders. You did not say anything. Right? So someone has to know you one-to-one to understand what value you bring. Right? I think those little things, even the way I used to do that, I started noticing it. Somebody would say, I'm sorry, I didn't understand that. Could you explain it again? Well, it could be that no one understood it in the room, and you're actually very smart and very inquisitive to understand it again, right? But you don't have to be apologetic about it.
Oh.
Right? So I think little things from which the confidence stems, and it's proven. I was reading a research, I think it was in the US, if I'm not mistaken. There was a park where they were observing parents. And when the boys were climbing, the parents were like rooting positively. But when the little girls were trying to climb a higher thing, parents were like, be careful, right? So you are encouraging boys to be risk takers, to operate in an environment even that's not safe. But you don't do that for girls, right? Even this whole, like, my daughter loves to dress up in a Spider-Man costume, right? So do my boys, because she's being surrounded by boys most of the time. But if I go to birthday parties or play dates, it's like princess, and she's like, no, I'm not a princess. I'm a Spider-Man. But the person is not saying with any bad intention, It's just how it is.
Yeah,
and you just
she's growing up in that surrounding, they're watching similar.
And she could grow anywhere. The surrounding would exactly be the same, right? You just see now stores dismantling pink and blue, right?
Yeah, that's true.
My son the other day, my husband was wearing a pink shirt, and he's like, why are you wearing pink color? Because he also knows that pink is for girls. And my husband was like, I love pink. And he's like, no, that's not a color for boys. It's a color for girls. And I said, do you ever see mommy wearing pink? And he's like, no, you don't. I said, see, actually, it's a boy's color. Daddy loves it. So, yeah, you can
It's
do
the
all
perception.
Yes. And they're so small, imagine. And they still got used to this environment.
Yeah, because they're ingrained in the school and their friends. And like you had once said, I read somewhere that if you change the way you look at things,
the things you look at will change.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
What is your style when it comes to leadership? Like how are you as a leader in your career? How have you been?
Two different parts of it. If you look at my first 10 years of my career, I was all about work. I would be very respectful. I always had a high sense of empathy. You move in different markets, so you have to learn how to observe and listen first before you talk. I was very young, given bigger roles. I knew that I have to gain people's respect, so they need to know what I'm bringing to the table and why should they accept me as a leader. So it was, but very much aware, and also with gender and age, it's a double-edged sword. I was like, okay, I should not share jokes, or I should not show my sense of humor because I may be considered less senior. Someone also told me you should wear glasses. You look very young to be doing this big kind of a job. So wear dark colors, so that you look more senior. So I was like, and then I wasn't very comfortable with my own personal life story to be shared with people because I had not come to terms with it. So it was like, if I remember, my team would tell me that, oh, you're a great boss, you're always there for us. But then they would say, I don't know if you're a human being. You reply at 1 a.m. to emails. Those were the BlackBerry days. You're in office by 5:30 a.m. And you just don't know what you have beyond work. Like, who are you, right? And then there's a second decade of my career, which I would say I totally embraced. I was able to process my life experiences. I was able to see what I can make out of them. I was able to, in a way, open the box, reframe my crucible, and reshape it into the purpose that I can have as a leader. I think that I was also very open, and I think I was able to expose my vulnerabilities without having any fear of judgment, which I think is very, very hard for any leader and more harder for women. You would know that, if I'm being emotional, I may be judged upon it. But I had passed that bridge. It just did not matter. Like, I was who I was. I was comfortable with my life journey. I was comfortable. So right now, if you look at it in the second decade, people would explain me as a...
Open book?
Yes, open book and there for them. Well, like, we can paint a big vision together, but the small obstacles that they're there for them, I would always be there to remove for them. I always know them as people, not as a person who is doing this for me. Of course, in bigger roles, it becomes harder for you to get to know everyone. But till date, I've not ever said no. It may happen later, but I've never said no to meeting to anybody. I don't even know who I'm meeting, why I'm meeting. But I always say yes because A, I think it's important, and B, many times instead of people who come to me saying that I mentored them, I in the end getting mentored, I gain more inspiration from it. So for me, being there, being present, being visible, and being who you are is important. And I've seen it across geographies. People define leadership as such a complex thing. There's so many frameworks and theories about it. For me, you have to put people first. Like, if I am interested in people's well-being and their achievement more so than my business goals, and I'm genuinely doing that, I'm a leader then. The people who have left my team, they're my team members who have gone to become my peers. And I told them when they were working for me that one day I'll work for you. And they would laugh, like, how's it once again? But that's true. That's how I always think about talent. They could not be even in the same company with me. I would still be interested in them doing good, bigger, better things.
What is your team size now? Like, how many people do you have in your team? Direct report.
8.
And how many men and women?
So I now have a 50-50 split. I used to have 75.
75. I'm assuming men or women.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. I used to have 75% women.
Okay, so you made a conscious effort, and is that something? As a company, they're making a conscious effort that if the credentials are the same, is there a preference?
So we have an equal slate policy. So I would say, for example, last year when I had 75% women, it was not like I was looking for women, but I make a little bit more of an effort on top of the company policy. The company policy says for every role you have to, in the slate process, you need to have 50% representation of the women, which I think is great because it encourages people to think. I always used to have double of that. So, for example, if 3 people are the finalists, I always wanted to have 2 women, right? So in the slate is the total slate. So let's say you are considering final 8 candidates, right? 50% should be women. But when the finalist comes, like you have to choose out of these 3 or 4, I would always want to have an overrepresentation of women, so the chances of a woman getting selected is higher. Which also means that throughout the journey, you have to work harder because women have to be overrepresented in the pipeline. And then you let the best talent win. But I also work a lot with my directs around the design of their team. I'm a big believer of taking risks on women. I and I do an external interview of a candidate who's not from within the company.
Okay.
And I'm making a decision based on 1 hour of an interview, right? If I know a woman in my team, well, let's say 60% there, but I've known her for the past 2-3 years. I'm not talking about my directs now, I'm talking about the second year. I would encourage my direct people to take a risk on her. Let's say you believe there are 4 ingredients, and let's say she has 2, and the 2 you can help her build it. Here we have an external candidate where we're interviewing based on 1 hour. You would give this person a job, new to our industry, new to our company, right? So why won't we do that? Someone took a risk on me. I was 28, when I was given the biggest people leadership job. A city sent me to their largest business in Poland to run a big P&L. And imagine my last, I was 4 years of total career in banking. And people who get that job usually have a 20-year work experience. The job posted said 20. So I even thought my boss was joking when he said to me about that job. And I went from managing 2 people, total team size, I just managed 2 people, to managing hundreds of people. Someone took that risk on me. Like they believed I could do that. So also that impacted me in a way that, yes, you should be, as a leader, you should be a risk taker. And especially in today's world when these rules don't apply, you know, like if I have to post a job of AI, 20 years of experience, what would you get? So agility, creativity, problem solving, perseverance, those things are more important for me, especially in the tech world. And you can actually give people small opportunities, especially when it comes to women. So I did an event in partnership with DIFC, and for each panel, I had chosen women, not in my direct team, but overall in my team, to be on the stage, to be moderators. Now, they'd never been on stage, but you know, when you're on stage and there's light and there are hundreds of people in front of you and there's media present, right? And you have to command the conversation, you have to direct the conversation. After that experience, you'll be a different person. But it's such a small thing to do, but it has a huge impact. So I think you have to keep on doing those things for us to really, in the end, have a bare minimum and equal representation. When I say equal representation, I don't mean 50% of your total workforce is women. I really don't care about that. I want to see how many of CEO directs are women, how many in the second layer of a company are women. Because if you have women in mostly junior roles and men in mostly senior roles, it completely defeats the purpose.
Yeah. True. When it comes to AI that you mentioned, what kind of integration Mastercard is doing with it? Or do you think it's going to replace jobs in Mastercard? Do you think AI would take over a few roles where you're not even debating should we have a man or a woman for this, but AI is actually going to take that over?
I don't think that, I think it's maybe I'll put it differently. I think it's a matter of redeploying your skills, you know, which Mastercard is really, really good at, because you have labs, you have these innovation days, you know, you have these unlocked projects where different teams can partner with different teams to actually work together in an area which is not actually their core job area, but it's different to what they are doing. I think it's very important for the world in general, even from the last 8 years, to keep on reinventing yourself. I have done that. Like last year, I went for a course at Harvard for AI. Well, people would say, why would at this stage in your career? But I want to continuously invest in myself to be relevant, to make sure that I am unlearning and relearning all the time, right? So if I assume that things would be done the way they had always been done, it's not going to happen like that. So I think when I think about AI, it has to be augmented with human intelligence. Humans have created it at the end of the day, right? How do you upskill your workforce so that they are not being used for mundane jobs, which may not be adding any value to them anyways? They're doing it because they get paid for it. And you upskill them and you redeploy their skill set, while AI takes over the jobs that actually are more mundane, or they make you more productive, they're more cost effective. I think the revolution of AI that would come is in the space of fraud. So, for example, I did a transaction, I think it was Saturday night. I was doing a transaction on an online store in the US, right? And my bank blocked my card, said it's a suspicious transaction. And if I reply to the SMS, which I did not, if I reply that it's me, then they will unblock it. I didn't see the second SMS. I was like, oh my God, my card is blocked, right? But I was thinking, did they know that I'm traveling to the US in the next 4 days? So maybe I'm doing this as it gets delivered and I can bring it on my way back, right? And do they know how frequently I shop at this particular brand?
Yeah.
So I think it's still maybe the outdated fraud rules, right? Now, it is someone's job to call me back now, tell me that the card is blocked and was it me, because after the SMS is a call back the whole day, I'm not going to pick the phone. I can't. I have back-to-back meetings. So can this whole thing be automated, and can we go into predictive fraud, which is something that we at Mastercard are doing? Of course, right? And you could argue it takes the job of that contact center employee, which is probably the most irritating job, to get hold of someone whose card you blocked and now calling them, right? Because the person is already upset. It's not probably the best job in the world. So if you upskill them and they actually get involved because they know how cards blocking and unblocking works, and the decision intelligence and automating those processes, it's a beautiful thing. So I think the mindset should be that. I mean, there are industries which can, I believe, this is my personal opinion, can be completely revolutionized with AI. And those would be like healthcare and education. You know, there the revolution can be huge. I mean, come on, my kids learn this exact same things that I do. I was talking to a client and they said, you know, their 12-year-old was going in an exam and the school said calculators are not allowed.
Yeah.
I mean, who's going to use calculators?
True. What is Mastercard today? Do you think it's AI-driven, tech-driven, service, product, people-driven? How would you classify it?
First of all, I think it's one of the most human companies I've ever worked in. Okay. It's truly human. It's very hard to find companies who are human at their heart. Mastercard is that. Our CEO and the leadership at the top is so humble and so approachable that for me, coming from banking, it was like a shock that people can be so humble and so approachable, because in big, huge banks like Citibank, it's still a lot of hierarchy and it's still a lot of structure that you go through. That's one. Second, I'd say it's a technology company with people at its heart. You know, I love the mission of the company. I think that's something that I really enjoy, because as such, it's part of my job, but I also do it in addition, and I go much further in that. But the company enjoys that, and they allow you to do that because it contributes to the mission and the vision that they have of doing well by doing good. That's a very, very nice thing to do.
So the initiatives are specific, like you come up with those initiatives for women empowerment programs, or is that like a Mastercard plan?
I come up with it.
Okay.
But there are many people in different regions across the globe who would come up with it, and Mastercard would support it. And then Mastercard has its own global initiative of including 1 billion people into the digital economy by 2025, with a special focus on women entrepreneurs in that. And all of us have those goals as a corporate KPIs that we have to contribute towards. But you go over and above that, and that's welcomed, you know, that's supported.
Okay. You mentioned, what is the SII? Is that something different? You mentioned the SME awards. There is a social innovation incubator program. Is that something different?
So that's in addition to this.
Okay. All right.
Yes. So we have like lots and lots of programs that are run globally. Women SME Award is something that we created in this region on top of all those programs.
Visa runs a similar program called She's Next. Is that similar on these lines, or is that something different? Do you have any idea on that? How they run their women empowerment program?
I think there are many programs, not only by Visa, but many, many other corporates. And I really think that the cause is so huge. The more companies do it, the better the word will be. You know, even if you're doing a similar thing. I know in our SME awards, for example, the biggest thing which is very emotional for me is that when those SMEs, they get a call that, you know, you've been selected and we will fly you to Dubai and you will come on stage. They think it's a scam. Why would somebody do that? They've never taken a flight, let alone a business class flight, or stayed in a hotel, right? So we had 2-3 incidents where they said, no, we don't believe you, it's a scam, right? And when I met them in the event, you know, there are tears in their eyes. They're like, we just couldn't ever believe that I'm such a small person doing this business in my home. And now they've just seen Dubai in news, and now here I am on the stage talking about it. It's a very emotional, but at the same time, uplifting experience for them, right? So for me, I don't really look at what other corporations are doing. First of all, it's good. The more we do it, the better it is. The world needs more and more of it. It's the kind of impact we can have. And it's hard to, when I show you a Women SME Award video, you will see the video and you'll be like, yeah, it's another program. You meet those people and you're present that day. And even our media partner, they were so moved by it, you know. They went over and above the way, out of their way to actually cover the event. And you cannot imagine, they were like day and night on it because they felt they're doing something that's just so great, you know. So it's important when people are not doing it because it's a corporate priority, but they're doing it because they feel they're so vested in it, it's so important to them. And most of the team, for me, who works on this Women SME Awards, it's not really their job. Okay. They're actually doing it because they want to do it and they love to do it. And that's why we get such incredible results. Like, people are working in the night on this. The colleagues say it's not their job, but they want to do it. They just take so much of pride in it. They're so passionate about it. That's why the end result is just so good, you know. You feel like, I always talk about an inspiration tank, that everyone has an inspiration tank. Yeah. You know, people feel like if I talk, someone would say, oh, that was very inspiring. But I have my own inspiration tank that needs to be filled. I think that Women SME Day fills it for me for weeks and weeks.
What is your definition of empowerment? Everybody has their own version. When I speak to people, especially women, they say how they take, because empowerment is such it's a strong word, but it's also used very loosely by many people. That's what they claim. So I'd like to understand from you.
Till this date, I never thought about a definition, you know.
What is your version of empowerment? Or how would you think is to empower with it?
I'm not sure if empowerment is the right word or inclusion is the right word. I would tell you what I feel extremely odd about is that the world has an equal representation of women. Almost in most universities, by and large, equal women and men graduate. And then you fail to understand why at the top of most corporates, or why most VC-funded businesses are only men. There's something off. And there could be 1,000 things off that have to be corrected, but definitely that's not how it should be. That's what I know. That needs to change. Like, I see so many, founder magazines, because of course I look into M&A as well, so we have lots of fintechs and all. And you see every founder picture, it's like 3 men posing, or I don't have any issue with their posing, but you know, it's just very rare and you would wonder why. I mean, why is that the case, right? Even in corporate world, you will see at the top. In fact, I have a very nice story, not really answering your question, giving your proper definition, but I was experimenting with this a very interesting app, which you imagine the art and a visual, and they draw it for you. So I said, 5 fintech CEOs having a lunch. So 5 male, I said speaking at a conference with a very engaging audience. I did it with a lunch also later. On stage. So it generated an image with 5 men, but real men, like AI created men. So there were 5 men. I said 5 fintech CEOs. There were 5 men. So next I said 5 fintech CEOs having a lunch and discussing business topics with others, right? So it was again all men. With others, meaning I'm not talking about the CEOs only. So 5 were CEOs, but the whole table was men. So then I went on to say 5 fintech CEOs, men and 1 woman, speaking on stage with a very engaging audience. And the woman was not real. It was like a caricature image.
Really?
So they didn't even have it in stock. You know what I mean? Like, they couldn't create it. What was it? Right? So, whereas in reality, that's not the case. Correct? I mean, you see them. Yes, they're rare. But why? I think those are the little things you have to work through. I see so many women who left work because of maternity and they wanted to spend 2 years. It's hard for them to make a comeback now. Partially because their confidence has gone down. Then the world has moved on. And then who would take a risk on them? Right? So, yeah, I can't give you a definition. Probably after this interview, I'll think about it. So next time I have one. But for me, there's something off and it needs to change.
How is Mastercard's maternity plans? Like maternity and paternity, do they
have the same maternity and paternity across the globe.
Okay, fantastic.
In fact, men in my team actually, they have a blast because I think they have like 4 months plus you combine your annual leave. It's like 5 months, that you can enjoy with your kid.
Across all your careers, did you ever face or struggle, like you being a boss, with like men not being able to, like your subordinates not able to take you seriously? Was there ever that kind of struggle?
No, I would not say that. No. I mean, very rare out
Everyone
here.
took it seriously.
1 and 2. I always think, since I lived and worked in like 10 different countries, and even within the company, let's say I'm moving from one region to another, right? I could be a star in that market or region. Now you go and you land up in a country where no one looks like you, nobody speaks the language that you speak. The regulator is different, the market is different. They have to understand, how did you get the job? Why do you deserve it? Right? So if you go with the mindset, say, oh, I'm the boss and I deserve the job, you ruined it. You're not a leader. I go with the mindset, forget about the fact that the company gave me the job. And I always call it upward management versus downward management. Someone at the top thought, yes, I should deserve the job. For me, that's 0. I'm starting with 0.0 when I land up day 1 in that job. I have to work hard to make those people believe that, yes, I was a 10 on 10 or a 9 on 10. I deserve this job. Only then people follow you. Only then people think that you're a leader. So I've always invested that way in any job that I start, actually.
I noticed on your LinkedIn, you have a partnership plan with Lulu Group. What is your take on them going public?
It's great. I can't say much more. It's great. I mean, they're a great partner. They're such amazing leaders to work with. So humble, and they know their business inside out. The way they conduct their business, it's with so much of professionalism. Extremely straightforward, authentic, nice leaders to work with. Have a great vision for the company. Have great teams who are executing it. You can see the expansion in Saudi now. So I think at Mastercard we're very privileged to have them as a partner for so many years.
Mentioning Saudi, how relevant is Saudi market to you?
It is in our top 10 markets, very much. It has scale, with the whole digitization now happening, with so many fintechs, telcos also entering into digital financial services. There's a lot that's happening there, and we are part of it, and we would be part of it.
And do you have like specific programs for elevating and empowering women for the Saudi market now that that's
Yes.
also opening up?
Yes, absolutely.
I've always found your LinkedIn posts very amusing. Do you honestly write them, or do you have a team that writes?
I don't know why people talk to me about that. I first of all, till 6 months back, I didn't know that someone can write your LinkedIn post. Like, I know comms can help you if you're announcing a partnership or like that, but I am very uncomfortable because it has to be my language. It has to be me.
Yeah. I can see that on your personal posts, like when you write about your weekday routines, weekend with your kids. You also don't post the faces of the kids. That's
No,
an
I do not.
unconscious effort.
Yes, absolutely.
You don't want to.
No.
Yeah, because I noticed that thing. But yeah, I find them very amusing, especially you're all heart when you write it.
Well, also, and I don't know, a lot of people, I should not say it on this podcast because for the past 5 years, I'm trying to write a book. I've not been able to finish it, but I get a lot of thoughts, like lots. Like, I could be leaving this room right now and I would be typing on my way between here to the car down. That I think I'll bump into something one day. Have bumped it, but I have a lot of thoughts. So I write almost most of the time. So it's not like, oh, today's Wednesday, what should I post on LinkedIn, right? So it's almost like I have thoughts all the time. Like I'm talking to you right now, at the back of my head, I have 4 or 5 thoughts that I would just go and write, So it comes very naturally to me. I feel uncomfortable, in fact, when, of course, I'm a corporate citizen, and if I have to announce a partnership, I'm given it in a certain format. But I have to say, and my comms colleagues are wonderful, they're lovely. I have to say that, listen, at the top, I will have the span in the middle, but at the top and the end, I'm personalizing it. For me, that's important. It's me who's saying it, right? So
I can feel the difference. I can see the post difference when you write personal with that passion and the length. You write really long, and when it's where there is external, like the comms involved, you can see that.
No, it's very
But
much
it's-
me. And I also think that I cannot segregate myself as who I am as a person and as a mom and as a wife and as who I am compared to my corporate title. For me, that segregation is very, very hard. Like, it's not I walk into the Mastercard office and I'm a completely different person. Like, even the client meeting that I was having today in the morning, like, I was just saying how I fractured my finger, right? And
What happened?
I was spinning my children, the way you spin them round and round.
Yeah.
They don't get dizzy, but you do. So when the third one came, I was telling him that
no.
mommy's very dizzy. And he's like, no, and you also need to say, I held him like that. It was dumb. I was doing it indoor as opposed to outdoor. So when I was spinning him, I fell on the sofa and my finger went in the wall. Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is that probably I'll make a post out of it, but my thought was that people think that you are so prim and proper in the corporate world. I remember I was in Nairobi, Mastercard, and doing a town hall, and one of the women asked me that, oh, all your ducks are in a row. And I told her, she's like, what's that? I'm like, my ducks are not in a row. You have to look at me because you just see a very prim and proper
Yeah.
person, like giving an interview or conducting a client meeting. And you're like, oh, wow, this is what success looks like. Or this is great, this person has it all together. No. At times, my lovely assistant is getting banana bread because she knows I'm about to lose it. In fact, there's so many things that happen. I can go on and on about it. I received an award for this fintech leader of the year, and my 2 of my colleagues were with me. And then the media folks asked me if I could do a quick interview, right?
Yeah.
And I was just about to go there, and I look at my WhatsApp message, and I was showing it to my colleagues. My housekeeper is saying, there's no banana for tomorrow. Are they going to have pancakes? Or can you buy it?
Yeah.
But I cannot completely disconnect from
Yeah.
it. You know, that's me. To answer your question, that post, like, it has to be me. You know, I cannot like draw. There has to be a line for sure. The things that you can say and you can't say. But that line is not so hard or rigid, you know.
And I think it's good to not be a perfect, like it's fine to have those imperfections because that makes you real.
Yeah, and also to be okay to talk about it and share it, you know. And I want actually more and more men to do it. Like, my husband was, because he wears his office clothes, and then one of my boys always says that he has to carry him at the school drop-off. And he's like, my whole shirt has like lost its purpose of ironing, because by the time he goes to his office, it's like all crumpled, right? And I'm like, what are you going to do about it? I was like, I'll tell them I lifted him at school drop-off. What else can I say? So I think you just have to normalize these things, because I think the more men also talk about it, it will look like it's normal. You see this perfect Photoshop images of like CEOs and big leaders, and you're like, oh, wow.
Yeah. Amnah, truly, you're a very inspiring person, fantastic person, leader. And I think the most important thing is that you're real. And that authenticity really shows.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amnah, for coming.
It was
Thank
wonderful
you.
talking to you. Thank you.